OOP, or object-oriented programming, is a way of organizing your code. Instead of having variables and functions loose all over the place, you can group them into classes that represent real-life things. For example, a dog class that has a property name and a method bark. Today I'm going to teach you 8 OOP concepts so that after watching this video, you will be able to organize your code like a senior. So here we go. Classes. A class is basically a template. For example, a blueprint for a house is not a house, but it contains the different properties and instructions to build not just one house, but all the houses you want. So if we put this concept into code, let's imagine we want a program that contains dogs. Without classes, basically, we would create 3 variables, name, breed, and age, for each dog we wanted to add, as well as methods and other things. With classes, we could define a class dog with 3 properties, name, breed, and age, and a method. Properties. Properties are basically variables, but that belong to a class. Our dog class has 3 properties, name, breed, and age. These properties will be defined when creating the dog and therefore exclusive to that same dog. Also, depending on the programming language, we can define if these properties can be changed or not, or if only can be read, or if we don't want them to be accessible from the outside. Methods. Methods are functions that belong to a class. That means that by being inside of a class, they can use properties and other methods within the same class. For example, in our dog class, if we want our dog to be able to bark, we can create a bark function that says the dog's name, which is a property that we have saved in our class, and then bark. Objects. If a class is a blueprint, an object is that blueprint brought to reality. For example, if we have a dog class, we can instantiate this class and we will get a dog object. To instantiate a class in most programming languages is by using the keyword new and then the name of the class. Once we have this dog instance, we can now save it into a variable as if it was a value. And once that instance is inside a variable, you can modify its properties or even call a method. And as we said previously, you can instantiate multiple objects from the same class. So we can create another dog, call it Luna, give its own properties, and call the methods. Constructors. A constructor is a special method that is executed automatically when you instantiate a class. This allows that at the moment of instantiation, we can pass some parameters to the constructor and even initialize some state or properties. For example, in our dog class, instead of having to first instantiate and then set the properties, we can just create a constructor that accepts the properties as parameters and then just initialize them from the beginning. This way we can also force and assume these properties will have an initial value. Inheritance. Inheritance is when one class inherits the properties and methods of another class. It's like saying, I want a class that's exactly the same as another one, but with some differences. For example, if we have a dog class and we want to create a wolf class, instead of creating it from scratch, we can just extend the dog class so the wolf class can inherit all the properties and methods that already exist in the dog class without duplicating them. And now we would just have to create a tag method and we would have our wolf class. Interfaces. An interface is like a contract that says any class that uses this interface must have these exact methods, which means that it doesn't care how they are implemented, it simply wants these methods to be available. For example, if we want our animals to be able to fly, we could create a flying interface that has a fly method, another method to land, and then for our dog to be able to fly, we would just have to implement with the word implements our flying interface with these methods inside the dog class. This way, our dog class can now be a flying animal because it has fulfilled the contract of flying interface. Polymorphism. Polymorphism sounds like a bit of a weird word, but it's very simple. Polymorphism allows us to interact with different classes and objects regardless of what they are, simply by knowing if they implement a specific interface or they extend a specific class. Both cases allow us to assume that they have a specific method or property that we can use. This way, if your application has different animals that come from an animal class and a flying interface, if you want to fly, you don't have to worry whether it's a pigeon or a parrot, you just have to know that implements flying, or because animal has the property name, you can know the name of any animal. This is the magic of object-oriented programming, that everything is united through classes and interfaces.